Look at the walls. No, don't turn your head too fast. Just glance. Did you see that shadow flicker? You think it's just a house spider or a common moth, a mindless pest in a world owned by man, but you're wrong. Scientists have always wondered why insect populations were declining, but they weren't dying, they were retreating, they were gathering. They were learning the architecture of our homes and the chemistry of our blood. As you sit there, billions of mandibles are vibrating at a frequency your ears can't hear, but your DNA can. They've stopped scurrying away from the light. Now, they're waiting for it to go out. The hierarchy of nature has just been inverted. The insects have taken control. If you can still feel your skin crawling, it means you're still one of us. Secure your place in our colony by hitting that subscribe button and ringing the bell. Don't let your voice be silenced by the swarm. Like this video to claim your humanity before the clicking starts. Now lock your doors if you think it'll help. It started with a rhythmic clicking behind the drywall of my bedroom, a sound so minute that I initially dismissed it as the house settling or the expansion of old copper pipes. But as a career entomologist, I should have known that nature never makes a sound without a purpose. I spent my life pinning iridescent beetles to corkboards and peering through macro lenses at the complex mandibles of the Formicida family always, convinced of my own superiority as the observer, never imagining that the specimens were observing me back with a collective cold intelligence that defied every law of biology I had ever studied. By the third night, the clicking had migrated from the walls to the mattress itself, a subtle, vibrating tremor that felt like 1,000 tiny heartbeats pulsing in synchronization against my spine. When I finally tore back the sheets in a feverish sweat, I didn't find bedbugs or common pests, but a carpet of silverfish so dense they looked like a shimmering liquid. They were flowing not away from the light, but toward me, their antennae waving in a terrifyingly deliberate unison as if they were tasting the very scent of my fear. I ran for the kitchen, my bare feet crunching on what I thought was spilled salt, only to realize the floor was white with the discarded husks of cicadas that should have emerged for another decade, their hollow eyes staring upward as the ventilation shafts began to vomit a thick black sludge of flies. They didn't buzz, but hummed a low, discordant frequency that vibrated in my teeth. I tried to call for help, but the phone line was dead, severed not by a blade but by the acidic secretions of 1,000,000 termites that had bypassed the wood of the house to feast directly on the copper wiring. As the lights flickered and died, I saw them in the final glow of the dying bulbs, the spiders, thousands of them, not weaving webs to catch prey, but weaving a singular massive shroud that covered the ceiling like a pulsating organ. The air became thick with the smell of formic acid and rotting chitin, a heavy, suffocating musk that burned my lungs. When I looked out the window, the moon was eclipsed not by clouds, but by a swarm of locusts so vast they blotted out the stars, their wings beating, with the sound of 1,000 drums signaling the end of the human era. I realized then that this wasn't an infestation, it was an insurrection. The pheromones I had smelled earlier weren't a warning to their own kind, but a command issued by something much larger. A hive mind that had been gestating in the deep crust of the earth, waiting for the moment we had sufficiently poisoned the atmosphere to make it theirs. My skin began to itch, a deep internal crawling that suggested they weren't just attacking from the outside, but had already introduced their larvae into my bloodstream through the microscopic bites I'd ignored for weeks. As I looked at my own reflection in the darkened glass of the oven, I didn't see my eyes, but the multifaceted, compound stare of a creature that was no longer entirely human. Every pore on my forearm seemed to weep a translucent ichor, and as I watched in a paralysis of pure biological terror, the skin began to ripple as if something underneath was rearranging my very muscular structure, turning soft mammalian flesh into the rigid segmented plates of an arthropod. I tried to scream, but my vocal cords had been coated in a fine, sticky silk, turning my cry for help into a dry, rasping hiss that harmonized perfectly with the scratching sounds coming from the attic. I could hear the heavy, wet thud of something far larger than a man dragging itself across the beams. It was the queen, I knew it instinctively, her presence radiating a psychic pressure that demanded total submission, a telepathic broadcast that erased my memories of sunlit days and replaced them with the singular, glorious purpose of the swarm. The refrigerator groaned as a colony of carpenter ants began to dismantle the metal casing with a terrifying mechanical precision, recycling our technology into the foundations of their new mound. Outside, the screams of my neighbors were abruptly cut short, replaced by the sound of billions of wings taking flight in a coordinated strike against the last bastions of human resistance. I felt my bones soften and fuse, my ribs expanding to accommodate a new set of spiracles for breathing the toxic, pheromone-rich air. As my human consciousness flickered like a dying candle, I saw the true face of the future, a world of silent, efficient horror where the individual is nothing and the hive is everything. I watched my own fingers elongate into serrated appendages, the nails falling away to reveal sharp, chitinous hooks. I realized with a final, sickening jolt of clarity that we were never the masters of this planet, merely the temporary, fleshy vessels meant to provide the protein for the true inheritors of the earth who had finally, decisively, taken control. The floorboards beneath me disintegrated as massive mandibles broke through the wood, and as I felt the cold, dry touch of the swarm pulling me down into the darkness of the earth, I welcomed the end of my humanity. For in the world of the crawling there is no more pain, no more doubt, only the endless, eternal clicking of the Queen's command. There is no escape from the architecture of the hive, no sanctuary in the cities of glass, for they are already inside the foundations. They are already inside the walls, and they are already inside you, waiting for the moon to reach its zenith to begin the final harvest of the mammalian race. The transformation is complete. If you can still read this, you are one of the few humans left. Mark your presence by commenting "not a drone" below and share which part of this story made your skin crawl the most. If you want to see what else is hiding in the dark, click the video on the left to see our last report on the shadows that move when you blink. Don't close your eyes. Don't stop watching. We are the last voice of the resistance. Join us before the swarm finds you.